They dragged me through the marble floors of my own husband's mansion, my 3-day-old daughter screaming in my arms, and threw us both into the freezing snow. What they didn't know? I had just inherited $2.3 billion, and I was about to make them pay for every single bruise. I'm Malin, and this is the true story of how I went from being thrown out like trash to destroying an entire family dynasty. Stay until the very end, because the moment they realized who I really was, that footage went viral and destroyed them completely. You don't want to miss what happened in that boardroom. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this revenge was years in the making. Let me take you back to where it all started. 3 days earlier, I was lying in a hospital bed, my body still recovering from an emergency C-section. The pain was unbearable, but nothing compared to the emptiness I felt. My husband Brandon hadn't visited me in 2 days, not once. The nurses kept giving me these pitying looks, whispering when they thought I couldn't hear. I kept telling myself he was just busy with work, that he'd come soon. I was so naive. My phone buzzed. It was my best friend Sarah. "Malin, I'm so sorry, please don't check Instagram." Of course. I immediately checked Instagram, and there it was. Brandon, my husband of 3 years, posted a photo with another woman. She was beautiful, glowing, and very clearly pregnant too. The caption read, "With my real family." I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces right there in that hospital bed, but I had no idea that was just the beginning of my nightmare. The hospital door slammed open so hard it hit the wall. I jumped, instinctively pulling my sleeping daughter closer. Brandon's mother, Helena, walked in first. I'd always been terrified of her. She was the kind of woman who could freeze you with just a look. Behind her was the woman from the Instagram photo, Cassandra. She had this smug smile on her face, one hand resting on her pregnant belly like she was claiming territory. Then came Brandon's sister, Natasha, who had her phone out and was already recording. And finally, Brandon's father, Gregory, a powerful businessman who had always looked at me like I was dirt on his expensive shoes. They surrounded my hospital bed like vultures circling prey. I was still hooked up to IVs, barely able to sit up without pain shooting through my abdomen. Helena didn't waste any time. "You've ruined my son's life long enough," she said, her voice dripping with venom. Cassandra stepped forward, and I'll never forget what she said next. "That baby isn't even his. We did a secret DNA test." My mind went blank. What DNA test? When? How? But before I could say anything, Gregory threw a stack of papers on my lap. "Sign the divorce papers, or we'll take the baby, and you'll get nothing." I looked at the papers with shaking hands. Everything was swimming in front of my eyes. Natasha was still filming, laughing at my tears. "This is going to get so many views," she said. Helena leaned in close. "Sign it now, or we call Child Protective Services and tell them you're mentally unstable. We have doctors on payroll who will say whatever we need them to say." I was drugged, exhausted, in pain, and terrified. They were going to take my baby. So I signed. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen. That's when Cassandra started laughing. Really laughing. "Did you really think a nobody like you could keep a Kingston?" she said. Then they told me the truth. Brandon had married me as a bet. A bet with his college friends. He got paid $100,000 to marry the poorest girl on campus and see how long he could stand it. 3 years of my life. 3 years of love, devotion, trying so hard to be good enough for his family. It was all a joke, but they weren't done with me yet. Helena insisted I come to the Kingston mansion to collect my things. I had no choice. I was being discharged that same day anyway. The hospital needed the room, so I wrapped my tiny daughter in the thin blanket the hospital provided and went to the place I'd called home for 3 years, knowing I'd never be welcome there again. The Kingston mansion was enormous, cold, and had always felt more like a prison than a home. As I walked through those halls for the last time, memories flooded back. All those dinner parties where Helena made me serve the guests like hired help. The tiny room in the back of the house where I slept because the master bedroom was too good for me. The hand-me-down clothes I had to wear while Natasha walked around in designer outfits. I remembered the time Helena slapped me in front of their friends because I embarrassed the family by mentioning my mother had passed away. Gregory had laughed and said, "You should thank us every day for letting trash live in our house." When I got to my room, everything was already gone. My clothes, my books, the few personal items I had, all thrown in the garbage bins outside. I found them there, soaked and ruined. My mother's jewelry, the only thing I had left of her, was gone. I later found out Natasha had taken it. My wedding photos were burning in the fireplace downstairs. Someone had thrown them in like they were nothing. I packed what little I could salvage into one small bag. My daughter was crying, hungry, needing to be changed. But before I could leave, Helena's voice echoed through the mansion. "Everyone to the main hall, now!" My stomach dropped. I knew this wasn't over. The entire Kingston family was waiting there. Helena stood at the center like a queen holding court. Brandon was there too, standing next to Cassandra with his arm around her. He wouldn't even look at me. "Before you leave," Helena said, her voice cold and sharp, "you will kneel and apologize for wasting 3 years of our time." I just stood there, holding my crying baby, too shocked to move. "I said kneel," she repeated. I shook my head. I don't know where I found the courage, but I said, "No." Gregory's face turned red with rage. He nodded to 2 security guards I'd never seen before, big men. They grabbed my arms and I started screaming, "Please, I have my baby, please don't hurt her." But they didn't care. They ripped my daughter from my arms and handed her to one of them, then they started dragging me. The pain was excruciating. My C-section stitches felt like they were tearing open. I could feel something warm and wet spreading through my clothes. Blood. I was bleeding. They dragged me across the marble floors like I was a piece of furniture. My daughter was screaming, that horrible newborn cry that still haunts my nightmares. Natasha was recording everything, laughing so hard she could barely hold her phone steady. Cassandra stood there with this satisfied smile, snuggled up to Brandon, who just watched with these dead, empty eyes. When they reached the front doors, I saw the blizzard outside. Snow was coming down so heavy you couldn't see 3 feet in front of you. The temperature had to be below 15 degrees. They opened those massive doors, and the freezing wind hit me like a slap. Helena walked up to me, looked me right in the eyes, and said, "This is where garbage belongs." Then they threw me down the mansion steps. I tried to curl up to protect myself, but I hit the stone steps hard. My shoulder took most of the impact. Pain exploded through my body, my bag came flying after me, and all my things spilled out into the snow. The security guard tossed my screaming daughter at me, and I barely caught her. Natasha shouted from the doorway, "Don't come back or we'll call the police for trespassing." Then the doors slammed shut with a boom that echoed in the empty street. I sat there in the snow, blood staining the white ground around me, my daughter screaming in my arms. I had no phone. They'd taken it. No money. No coat, just a thin hospital gown and a pair of shoes that were already soaked through. I wanted to die right there. I really did. But my daughter's cry reminded me that I couldn't give up. I had to survive. For her. I don't know how long I stumbled through that blizzard. My body was shutting down. I could barely feel my fingers. My daughter had gone quiet, which terrified me more than her crying. That's not normal. Babies don't just go quiet in the cold. I collapsed near a streetlight, ready to just close my eyes and let it all end. That's when I saw the lights. 3 black cars, expensive ones, pulled up out of nowhere. An elderly man in an immaculate suit stepped out, holding an umbrella. "Miss Malin Chen?" he said. "Thank God we found you." I couldn't even speak. I just held my daughter and cried as this stranger and a team of medical professionals rushed toward us. They wrapped us in heated blankets, put us in the car, and rushed us to a private hospital. A really nice one. Nothing like the place I'd just been kicked out of. When I woke up, I was in a beautiful room. My daughter was in the NICU, but the doctors assured me she would be fine. She'd been so close to hypothermia that 10 more minutes would have killed her. The Kingston family had nearly murdered my baby girl. The elderly man was sitting in a chair beside my bed. "My name is Mr. Harrison," he said gently. "I'm your grandfather's attorney, and we need to talk immediately." What he told me next changed everything. My grandfather was William Chen. I'd never known him. My mother had run away from the family when I was just a baby after some kind of dispute. She'd changed our names, hidden us, and died 5 years ago without ever reconnecting with her father. But William Chen had never stopped looking for us. He'd built a massive empire worth $2.3 billion across real estate, technology, manufacturing, and hospitality. He'd found us 1 year ago but wanted to wait until after my baby was born to reveal himself. He'd been watching from a distance, seeing everything the Kingston family did to me. Then, 5 days ago, he had a heart attack and died. But before he died, he left everything to me, his entire empire. All $2.3 billion. Mr. Harrison handed me a letter in my grandfather's handwriting. Through my tears, I read, "My dear granddaughter, I failed your mother by being too proud and stubborn. I won't fail you. Take this empire and show them what Chen blood really means. Never bow to anyone again." Mr. Harrison laid out everything. The DNA test the Kingstons showed me, completely fake. They'd bribed a doctor. Brandon's bet with his friends, recorded on video. The Kingston family business, failing badly. They were almost bankrupt and owed $50 million to various creditors. Here's the crazy part. Gregory Kingston had recently applied for a major contract with Chen Global Industries. My company, Helena's boutique chain, was renting space from properties I now owned. Natasha's modeling agency was funded by one of my subsidiary investments. The Kingston family's entire financial survival depended on me, and they had absolutely no idea. I looked at Mr. Harrison, and I felt something change inside me. The scared, broken girl who'd been thrown in the snow was gone. Something colder, harder, sharper had taken her place. "Tell me everything about their business," I said, "every single detail." The next 2 months were a blur of transformation. I threw myself into learning everything about my grandfather's empire, business strategy, company operations, negotiations, power plays. I even took self-defense classes because I never wanted to feel helpless again. I bought expensive suits in gray and white. I learned how to walk into a room and command it. My baby daughter Luna had a full team of nannies, the best care money could buy. I became Chairwoman Chen, and in every business meeting, executives either feared me or respected me, usually both. But I wasn't just learning, I was plotting. Mr. Harrison's team helped me buy up all of Kingston Industries' debt, every single penny of that $50 million. Now I owned it, and I could call it due whenever I wanted. I had my people leak information about Natasha's real age and all the plastic surgeries she'd lied about. Her modeling career imploded overnight. Helena's boutiques started getting violation notices for things like safety codes and occupancy limits. My lawyers made sure everything was perfectly legal, just perfectly timed. And Cassandra? My investigators dug into her past and found out her real name was Candy Thompson. She was a con artist who'd scammed 3 rich men before Brandon. She wasn't even pregnant, fake ultrasound. The whole thing was a lie. The Kingston family was falling apart, and they didn't even know I was behind it. Natasha's agency dropped her, and she became a trending topic on social media for all the wrong reasons. Helena's boutiques were failing inspections left and right, and her lawyers couldn't figure out why. Cassandra's true identity got leaked anonymously online, and when Brandon found out, their relationship exploded. Gregory was getting threatening phone calls from debt collectors every single day. They were desperate, and that's exactly where I wanted them. Finally, Gregory got the email he'd been praying for, a meeting with the CEO of Chen Global Industries, the contract that would save his entire company. The Kingston family celebrated like they'd already won. I watched them through surveillance footage I'd had installed. Helena actually said, "Thank God that trash Malin is gone. We're finally free of her." Natasha laughed and said, "I wonder what happened to her. Probably dead in a ditch somewhere." Cassandra, even knowing her own lies were falling apart, added, "Who cares? She was nobody." I smiled at the screen. "Enjoy your last days of peace," I whispered. "The storm is coming." The morning of the meeting, I chose my outfit carefully. A sharp white suit, my hair pulled back severely, minimal makeup except for dark red lipstick. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I looked like power. I looked like money. I looked like someone you don't mess with. Perfect. The Kingston family arrived at Chen Global headquarters looking shabby. Gregory was in an old suit that didn't fit quite right anymore. Helena's jewelry was obviously fake up close. Natasha looked rough, like she hadn't slept in days. Brandon was clearly hungover. They looked like what they were, a family desperately clinging to the last shreds of their status. The receptionist sent them to the 45th floor. I imagined them in the elevator, nervous but hopeful, thinking this meeting would save them. The elevator opened to my executive floor, all glass and steel and city views. They were led to the boardroom with its floor-to-ceiling windows and massive table. I was sitting at the head of the table, my chair turned away from them, looking out at the city I now partially owned. I let them wait, let them wonder. Then, slowly, I turned my chair around. Hello, Gregory, Helena, Natasha, and Brandon. You should have seen their faces. Gregory went pale white, like he'd seen a ghost. Helena actually fainted, right there in the boardroom. Natasha had to catch her. Brandon just froze, his mouth hanging open, unable to form words. "It's Chairwoman Chen to you," I said coldly. "Please, sit down." Security guards stepped in front of the exits. No one was leaving. I stood up and walked slowly around the table. I'd practiced this moment in my head 1,000 times. 2 months ago, I began, my voice steady and cold, you threw me and my daughter into a blizzard. Behind me, the massive screen lit up. I'd had my team recover all the security footage from the Kingston mansion before they could delete it. Every second of my humiliation played in crystal clear quality. The hospital ambush, the mansion degradation, them dragging me across the marble floors while I screamed, my baby crying, them throwing me down the steps, the blood in the snow. Helena had woken up by then, and when she saw the footage, she started crying. Natasha tried to stammer out some excuse. I didn't let her. "Shut up," I said, and my voice came out like thunder. The entire room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I opened a folder and slid documents across the table. "Let me tell you what's about to happen," I said. I looked at Gregory first. "I own all your debt. $50 million. It's due immediately. You have 48 hours to pay in full, or I seize everything. Your company, your mansion, your cars, every single asset." Gregory's face turned purple. He tried to speak, but I moved on. "Helena," I said, turning to my former mother-in-law, "your boutiques are on my properties. You're evicted, effective today. Also, I'm suing you for stealing my mother's jewelry. $5 million lawsuit. My lawyers will be in touch." Natasha was next. "I destroyed your modeling career because you filmed my worst moment for entertainment. You wanted to make me viral for being humiliated. Now you're viral for being a fraud. Oh, and that modeling agency you worked for, I bought it last week. You're fired." Then I turned to Brandon. This was the man I'd loved, the man I'd trusted, the man who watched them throw me in the snow and said nothing. "The DNA test was fake," I told him. "Luna is your daughter, and you abandoned her when she was 3 days old. I have full custody, and you will never see her again. Ever. Also, that video of you and your friends making a bet about marrying me? It's going to every major media outlet tomorrow morning. The whole world is going to know what kind of man you really are." Brandon broke down completely. He started crying, actually sobbing, reaching out toward me. I stepped back like he was poison. "Don't," I said, but I wasn't finished. "And Cassandra," I said, pulling up a live newsfeed on the screen. "Or should I say Candy Thompson? The con artist? The woman who scammed 3 men before Brandon? The woman who faked a pregnancy with a fake ultrasound?" The newsfeed showed police arresting Cassandra outside the Kingston mansion at that exact moment. She's being arrested for fraud as we speak. I leaned close to Brandon, close enough that only he could hear me. "You told me I was nothing, nobody, trash." I straightened up and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "But trash doesn't own $1 billion empire. Trash doesn't destroy dynasties. You didn't throw away trash, Brandon. You threw away a queen. And now, you're all finished." 1 month later, the Kingston mansion was seized and auctioned off. Kingston Industries went bankrupt and shut down completely. Gregory was working as a sales manager at some small company, humiliated and broken. Helena was living in a tiny apartment with no boutiques, no status, nothing. Natasha became a social media disaster. No one would hire her. Brandon got divorced from Cassandra once the truth came out, and now he was living in his parents' tiny apartment, working a delivery job just to survive. Cassandra went to jail on multiple fraud charges. Meanwhile, my empire was thriving. I'd expanded into new markets. Forbes did a feature on me. The mysterious chairwoman who appeared from nowhere. Luna was healthy, happy, and beautiful. I'd donated $10 million to women's shelters in my mother's name. And that surveillance video of what the Kingston family did to me? It went viral. 50 million views. The Kingston family became a worldwide symbol of cruelty and karma. Everyone knew their faces. Everyone knew what they'd done. They thought breaking me would be easy. They thought I'd disappear quietly into the snow and never be heard from again. But pain doesn't break everyone. Sometimes it forges them into something so much stronger than they were before. My daughter will grow up knowing that no one, absolutely no one, gets to tell you what you're worth. Only you decide that. If this story fired you up, smash that like button right now. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because next week's revenge story is even more insane than this one. Comment below and tell me, what would you have done to the Kingston family? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You are not trash. You are not nobody. You are powerful. And don't let anyone ever tell you different. The best revenge isn't violence. It's becoming so successful that your enemies can't even touch you anymore. This is Mei Lin. Stay strong, stay fierce, and never ever let them see you break. Justice isn't always immediate, but trust me, it's always worth the wait.